This is Holly. Many of you know her already. I've had the pleasure of knowing Holly for a long time. I actually tried to work it out today. And it was a bit scary. I was like, well, I must have been about 23. So yeah, Jesus. And I'm a lot older than that now. Yeah, I have watched Holly escalate over the last few years in a really amazing but unsurprising way. And it's really lovely to have you here tonight. I've got some props in case you want me to like hold anything up for you.
I don't even have a copy of one of those books.
Oh, that's a worry. I feel you should really own your own book.
Well, I did have to message my publisher today and say, can I have a copy of the book?
Bit harsh.
Right.
Oh dear. So yeah, I've talked in the group already a bit about the things that you've been up to over the years, and so I think most people follow you anyway. So it's just really nice to have you in here tonight, just to chat really about your journey, and so we can hang on to your like tailcoat, that's the right expression, and then we can learn from you, and then yeah, get some of your magic. So thanks.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Over to you.
So hi everyone, I'm Holly, and yeah, I've known Linda for a long time, and I never really planned to have the business I've got, or it was never really my intention to set out to be an entrepreneur or do anything that I've actually done. I would say my journey's been quite serendipitous and led by where life has taken me, which I'm sure many of you can relate to. Being women in business, I think that's often the path we take to our kind of lifestyles and businesses that revolve around that rather than the other way around. So I actually used to be a graphic designer. That was my job before I had my first son 10 years ago. And interestingly, I was just actually having dinner downstairs and talking to my eldest about like university and, you know, just different ways into work. And my other half went to uni and studied history, which is what I was going to study. And Oscar, my eldest, said, well, why didn't you go to university? And I said, well, I just kind of liked working. And I basically had planned to go to university, but in the summer in between had been offered, I was waitressing at a golf club, and one of the members there owned a design agency and said, well, before you go to uni, why don't you come and do a bit of kind of just working on front desk for us? Like, you can earn some money, and it was way better than what I was earning as a waitress. So I said, yeah, great, okay. And I basically got to this workplace in central London, and I was like, oh my God, like this is so different to anything I'd experienced. And I was with all these different people that had come from different backgrounds and different levels of experience and were bringing something different to the workplace. And I just found it mind-blowing. And I loved being part of a team. I loved meeting different people. I loved connecting with different people. And actually, at the end of my kind of summer stint, the owner of the company said, look, we love having you here. You're a great fit. If you'd like to train in something and do an apprenticeship instead of going to uni, then you can. So much to my parents' disapproval, that's what I chose to do. Kind of knowing that if I ever wanted to go back to uni, I could. And so I ended up working there for a few years and then moved to a different design agency. I basically did an apprenticeship in graphic design, and kind of really enjoyed it and really enjoyed the creative outlet. I'd been very academic before that, so having something creative had ignited something different in me, which I was grateful for. And then I had my first son, and I was by far the first of my friends to be pregnant. I was only 25 when I had him. And the graphic design industry, the corporate design industry, is very male dominated. So I kind of knew when I had him that job wouldn't be there if I wanted to go back, sadly. And when I had him, I was so I'm a hypnobirthing teacher. That's kind of my entry point at entrepreneurship, I guess. And when I had him, I was so scared about birth and so, I would say, disempowered as a woman. I didn't recognize any kind of feminine strengths in myself, or I'd actually say I was quite masculine in my energy. Like, I was very productive and very linear. And actually, when I had him, my birth was so transformative and really put me in touch with that kind of feminine power and the kind of the power of working in a cyclical nature. You know, I think especially when we've come from male dominated industries, we can be very pushed into these male linear work patterns of like work hard, play hard. And actually, what I noticed in becoming a mother was that my energy really ebbed and flowed. And you kind of learn about that in hypnobirthing. And so hypnobirthing, that experience of my son's birth, I like that cat that's joining us, it's like, oh, just really transformed my kind of headspace around what my life could be, I guess. And that actually I didn't just need to work for someone else to make them money and then live for the weekend. That actually I had more value to offer. And at the time, so this is 10, 11 years ago, no one was teaching hypnobirthing. It was so new. You know, the closest course I could find was like 2 towns away. And so I thought, well, I can teach this. I believe in this. I know it works. On paper, I had quite a traumatic birth, but I found it a really positive experience. I enjoyed it. Like, when I was talking to people about having enjoyed my birth, they were like, you know, I remember talking to Linda when I had my first and saying, yeah, it was romantic. It was peaceful. It was just, I'd do it again any day. And I kind of realized that there was something that women weren't getting when it came to birth. And so I wanted to kind of step in and have some input in changing that, really. And so I retrained while I was on maternity leave to be a hypnobirthing teacher. And then I basically started up teaching couples in my front room, in my flat, when Oscar was in bed, like one couple every 3 months or something. You know, I didn't have any clients. And I would be so nervous about teaching. I'd have like 3 glasses of wine before teaching, and then kind of get through my whole 2.5 hour class in about 20 minutes. I just go in, and then there's a uterus, and then there's oxytocin, and then saying kind of, any questions? And then being like, oh my God. So it really took me a long time to build up my confidence in what I was doing, because it was totally new. I'd never worked with women before, which was a real turning point for me. And I realized that women absorb information differently to men. Men want everything hard and fast and in a straight line. And when you're working with women, what I've learned over the last decade is that it takes a lot more care and a lot more of yourself and a lot more kind of adaptation in the kind of information you're delivering. You know, when I teach now, none of my courses are the same, because I will adapt it to who I've got in front of me. And I think that is a very feminine energy to bring to your work. So I started teaching just kind of one couple at a time, and then decided to take 2 couples in. And then kind of after a couple of years, people had started recommending me. I didn't do any advertising at all. All of my business was built on word of mouth. And then my courses were kind of getting fuller. So I was like, okay, I'll run them from a premises, I guess, like, you know, so I can have bigger groups. And then gradually started doing bigger groups. And that's kind of how my hypnobirthing business grew. So it was super organic. It wasn't rushed. It took me like 3 or 4 years to establish myself as a teacher. And I did not pay for any advertising. It was like connecting with yoga teachers and other therapists, and just relying on the fact that I was good at what I did and that other people would send people my way. I think that especially at the moment, and especially in the last 5 years, what I've seen a shift in is everyone wanting quick success and everyone wanting to be fully booked from the beginning and being sought after and being like super popular. When actually, if you really want to build a business that has quality at its core, that stuff just takes time. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that that takes time, and to actually see that every couple or person or whoever it is you're working with in your capacity is the person you need to teach at that time, or connect with, or sell to, or whatever it is. That actually you don't need to be full or have a waiting list or be busy. You know, every single person and customer you encounter is there to teach you something and is there to further your experience. And actually, the more experienced you get, the better your offering becomes. You know, and I think there's such value in that, and I think it's really overlooked. And so I'm really glad I got the opportunity to grow it that way, because even today, like every single couple I work with, I value them so much. Like I really value that they've chosen to come to me for a course when they could go to anyone. And I see each couple as like, it's a privilege to teach them. I never take it for granted. And I think when you grow too quickly, it can become very much about numbers and turnover and popularity. And it's just, I hate that whole popularity bullshit. It's just crap. And it's we get distracted by it too easily and we forget why we're doing what we're doing. So that was my experience with hypnobirthing. Now then, what I found was that the clients that I was getting were loving the hypnobirthing. I was loving working with them. But then afterwards they were like, is there something now? Like, how can we do hypnobirthing now? Like, what's the next bit? And I always placed a huge focus on the value of affirmations in my work. And so I thought, okay, well, what if I just get some affirmations printed? Like, I'll make little cards with positive affirmations on for new mums. Great. And I'll print like 20 packs and I'll just send them to couples I've taught. Brilliant. And in that time, I taught Fern Cotton. Oh yeah, there you go. Linda's got her prop. So I taught Fern Cotton hypnobirthing and I sent her a pack of my affirmation cards. And bear in mind, these, like, I just put them on my website. I was like, oh, okay, so I've sent like 12 packs. There are 8 packs left. So I'll just put them on my website. And then she happened to post it on Instagram and we had about 2,000 orders in about an hour. And my phone just turned off. My website crashed. I was like, oh my God, something terrible's happened. Like I've been hacked, or, you know, thinking something awful had happened. And then I had all these orders for affirmation cards. I was hand collating these packs of cards. I mean, I was printing 31 of one affirmation, 31 of another affirmation, and then hand collating them, then putting them in a pack, then putting them in an envelope, then walking into the post box. And suddenly I had 2,000 packs to order and collate. And I was like, oh, this is going to be tricky. And so I basically got all my mates over, plied them with wine, and around the kitchen table we were just collating. My whole kitchen was covered in affirmation cards. And that's when I realized it was kind of quite a good idea, beyond me just giving something to the people I taught, that maybe other people would find them helpful too. And I think what that demonstrates is that you don't always have to come to ideas wondering how you're going to make money. That actually, if you just meet the needs of your clients, it can often, like, that's the secret. It's like meeting the needs of the clients you have and bettering that, like bettering your offering, rather than always trying to think of something new or something like novel. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we can really overcomplicate our thinking as women in business and think, oh, what can I offer that's really different? And it's when we tend to undersell ourselves, or kind of overpromise. And actually, I think stripping it back and keeping it simple is valuable. So then that kind of led to me organically building a bit of an Instagram following. And that really has just kind of continued as the years have gone by. There's, I've never bought followers. I've never paid for advertising on Instagram. It's just not my bag. I don't really care how many followers there are. I care that there are people there that are interested in what I'm saying and that I can connect with. And I think when you're doing something that means that much to you, you will naturally draw people towards you. So I think always asking yourself what your purpose is when it comes to your work. A big part of the purpose of my work was having more time for my kids. That is my purpose. I don't want to be in a 9-to-5 job where I don't see my kids. It's not what I want at this point in my life. So for me, when I'm finding myself on my phone for hours, I kind of have to remind myself, like, remember why you're doing this. It's not to be sat on your phone all night, it's to be with your kids. So I'm a lot more boundaried now with my time and kind of offerings, but that's something that you kind of have to fine tune as you go along, I guess. So yeah, and then my hypnobirthing business again has just grown organically. You know, I've branched out to teaching my syllabus to other teachers. We've got more ranges of affirmation cards, but none of that's happened overnight. It's all been very slow, kind of, you know, this feels like the right thing to do for the business now. And whenever I do something new, I always give it a good 6 months to see how it pans out before I do something then new on top of that. Whereas I think in a world where we are so dictated to by social media, where everything is quick and validation and likes are instant, it can feel like if we post something and it doesn't immediately get loads of likes, we're like, oh no, like I've messed up, this is wrong. And actually you just have to let stuff brew sometimes and sit and breathe. I think that's a really, when you're doing work that is person-centered especially, I think you have to give people time to come to you and hear you and not just expect instant validation. You know, if you're doing it for validation, then you're probably always going to be disappointed. Whereas if you're doing it because it's life-changing for you or because it's what your heart is telling you to do, then it's always going to be rewarding, whether you've got 1 client or 50 clients. So yeah, that's kind of remained my ethos through growing my business. Yeah, that's like my first hypnobirthing class where I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I haven't even had 3 glasses of wine. Yeah, I think that's kind of a good summary of like how I do what I do and how it's grown the way it has. Yeah, so if you, I mean, I'm really, really happy to answer your questions and answer.
Did you want to refer to the fact you've written books?
The books I wrote. Oh yeah. Yeah, so even that was kind of serendipitous. So I taught a woman who happened to be a commissioning editor at Penguin, and when she'd done my course, she was like, you've got to rewrite this hypnobirthing book. The one that you've given us is crap and you could write it better. And so I was like, oh yeah, wow, a book deal, okay. And then that sounded all very glamorous, and then I realized the work that went into writing a book. I was like, oh my god. And I was pregnant when I was writing that book, so you know my brain cells were limited anyway. But writing a book feels like the most studious work I've ever done, like the most labor intensive work, part of my business over 10 years. And then for some reason I agreed to write another one. I think people always think writing books is really glamorous and like, oh, I'm an author, but it is the loneliest, labor intensive, like unless you've got an absolute shitload of willpower, it is the hardest thing to do. I found writing books really hard, so I do consider it a big achievement because I found it really hard, but it does also make me very proud. You know, when my kids are like, that shop's got your book in it, I'm like, yeah. So you know, that's nice. Yeah.
I come off mute again. I'm really bad at, if I'm not on mute, at just chipping in. I forget that I'm not supposed to talk. So I just keep getting like, yeah, and like just saying random things. So I have to literally censor myself. I'm a nightmare. I mean, that's amazing. And I love how, like you say, it's serendipitous. And I love, how things take turns. And the fact that you had, the publisher of like a Penguin, like you taught them. I mean, it's insane, isn't it? And I mean, on smaller scales, small things that happen to me quite a lot. And you're like, because you connect with so many people over what you do, and you form like a bond with someone, don't you? Totally. And therefore you invest in them, and they kind of invest in you back, which is really wonderful. Should we open up the floor?
Let's open up the screen.
Let's open up the screen. Who, I'm sure you must have some questions.
Even if you don't have a question, can someone just ask one? Because otherwise I'll be really awkward.
It's so painful, isn't
it?
Yeah. I don't like talking to silence. That's why I talk too much. Right. Who'd like to go first? Just go for it.
I'm happy to ask the first question.
Go for it.
Hi, Holly. Thank you. That was really inspiring to hear. My question is, what is your kind of vision now for your future? Like, where are you heading?
That's a good question. So I am not really a planner. You know, when people have like 5-year plans and 10-year business plans, it's just not me. I am a massive believer in trusting what's put in front of you, and I will always follow the lead of my business as opposed to the other way around. I would like to move into the work of more kind of, I'd actually like to move back into more person-centered work. So because a lot of my work is online now, I really miss human contact. I really miss teaching. I mean, I am still teaching on Zoom, but it's not the same as just building up those relationships with people. And I think, unfortunately, when you're working with people and it's your time, it's not particularly profitable. Like for those of you with businesses that is like service-based, you don't make a huge amount of money that compensates for your time. But actually, money isn't everything, and there is so much more value to the work that you do. And I know that I can make way more money online than I can with people. And the last 5 years have really shown me that. But it's not a substitute for working with people for me. Like, I get a huge amount of fulfillment from connecting with other people. So I would like to do something in some kind of therapeutic capacity. Like, I'm really massively interested in attachment theory at the moment, certainly since having my second son. And I would love to kind of link the birth experience into the postnatal experience a bit more, because I think in our society and in our culture, we kind of compartmentalize everything into pregnancy, birth, new mums, and actually it's all linked, it's all the same. And so I would like to do more work in linking those realms together a bit. I've got a podcast which I do now, which I'm excited about. I like having conversations that are a bit deeper than what we're used to hearing. And so I'd like my work to reflect that. So I would say it is back to being a bit more person-centered and a bit more therapeutic is what my answer would be.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Who'd like to go next?
Come on, please.
Don't be shy, guys.
I'll go. It's not so much of a question. I think it just really struck home, Holly, when you were saying about that kind of instant gratification, because we're told so much by like marketing people and all of this, you know, get quick. Like, so I'm a coach and so I am that male organizer. I'm the cut that I hope to bring the feminine side to it as well. But and so many people, it's like you know you can make 10K in 3 weeks and do this and da 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 da. And it's like, I think just that remembering that actually if you come from a place of love, okay, and actually do what you're passionate about, the people that you get, as you say, are the ones that need you and you need them, because it shows you why you're doing it. And I think that's just kind of hearing your story just really struck home that actually you just never know where you're going to go and what's going to come up, and just keep doing what you enjoy.
Yeah, and I think, you know, with the rise of social media, it's made that it's really amplified that, because we just see people growing their platforms and getting loads of likes, and that's almost what we've decided that success is now. And actually success is so much more than that. Like, you know, I know so many Instagram influencers or whatever you want to call them, and they're not very happy people. It's like, because likes from people you don't know doesn't really do much for you. It doesn't really do much for your heart or your soul or who you are or what sets you on fire. Like, it's almost like kind of like taking drugs, isn't it? It's just like getting a quick high, but actually what's underneath it. And I think when our work is informed by these are the connections I want to form, this is how I want to feel when I get home from work, whatever that is. Like, I want to feel, my goal is always to feel like I'm making a positive contribution to my community. That's it. Like, that's what I want to feel. And if I can make money doing that, brilliant. But my success is dictated by how good I feel about the work I do, not about followers or likes. But I think
I'm just nodding and nodding and nodding at you.
Yeah, we are just like,
I think it's easy to forget that there are people that these kind of Instagram accounts or like big businesses or big kind of successful entrepreneurs, they're still people. And actually, you know, that kind of visibility is only one part of who they are and their offering.
No, it's so, I mean, I shared something on my page the other day because I've done recently some videos of like when I've been out running and things, and I had some, I don't know who they were. I deleted it so quick, I didn't even pay much attention to their profile, but I'm like a marketing professional, and they were like, you know, oh, I think if you know, use some better filters and do this, it's going to come across as a more flawless video. And I was like, bugger off. Like, I don't want to be flawless. Like, the people that I work with are real people. They're dealing with like real life challenges around organizing their home. They don't need me to be flawless. Like, and if you don't like it, then sod off and go to another page that is flawless,
and actually, if as facilitators we're kind of pitching this idea of perfection and seamlessness, what hope does that give the people we're working with? It's just setting this unattainable bar, which I think is really unhealthy, especially for women. That's my feeling on it. So I totally hear that.
You've got some more hands now.
Does that mean people have questions? Because that's exciting.
Yeah, I think they're being polite.
Oh, thanks, Linda.
Chrissy, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'll sneak in there and go next, just because it kind of feeds in really with what we're talking about with social media. I really, really have, I would say, a significant distaste for social media. I just can't stand it, and I think it's not good for anybody's mental health. Even when you're being successful, it damages your mental health fundamentally, because for all these reasons that you're talking about. Yeah. So it's something that limits me in what I want to do, because I understand how powerful it is and how it can generate income. But do you think there is another way? Do you think it is still possible to do something where you're almost anti that, and you're almost, you know, I just don't want to become involved in it. But I understand if I want a successful business, how am I going to grow that clientele?
Yeah, so I think what you can, I totally hear that. Like, I think if my business didn't depend on Instagram, I definitely wouldn't be on Instagram. No way. I wouldn't be on any social media if my business didn't dictate that I was. So I think for me, what's really helped the way I approach it is that I consider Instagram part of my work, like it's my office. So it's like I could say that, well, hang on, going to my office, going to my workplace is really bad for my mental health. It's full of assholes, and like I don't really get on with anyone that well, and you know, it triggers lots of stuff in me. But if I just see it for what it is, that I'm going there to do a job, and almost separating your persona and your brand. So you can bring elements of your personality into your brand, but your brand doesn't have to be you. You know, what do you do? What is your business?
So I'm hypnobirthing teacher, right, but not actually really launched. I just seem to teach everybody for free, because I've just got a lot of issues around
like valuing what you do.
No, I value what I do. It's not necessarily that. I just think everybody charges too much anyway. And I just think I don't know what it is. I feel there's a massive saturation now, and I have another job as well. Obviously, I have my main job, which is killing me and crippling me. So the whole point was to try and get into something that I was passionate about teaching. But I'm just really against, I just can't get my head around it. It's just I just no interest in social media and what it does. So
I mean, if you could have like a hypnobirthing business page, because actually you're not interacting with your, you know, the significant interaction for you isn't happening on Instagram. The significant, meaningful work you're doing is in person. But actually, if the Instagram facade can get the people to you, it doesn't mean you have to give your full self to Instagram. But I think if I were you, I would be setting up my hypnobirthing business not as like myself, but as a brand, and then creating that brand on Instagram, but just leaving lots back. Like you don't. Yeah. I think sometimes we feel like it's all or nothing, and I don't think it has to be that way. I can think, you know, you set the boundaries around what you're prepared to share online. You know, there are some things I will not talk about online, or that I will not share about my kids on, because that to me is my boundary, and that's what I feel happy with. I don't care what anyone else thinks about it. And unless you have a clear idea of what that is, you can't then uphold it. So I think maybe rather than just like launching online, it's like, okay, what am I prepared for to be visible? What can I give away that's visible? And how can I interact with people as a business, but leaving the value of me to the people that pay to see me, that book with me?
Yeah, it's great. That Hollie.
And I think as well, like, it's interesting to me that you said that everyone overcharges. Like, I certainly agree that hypnobirthing has become super saturated. I mean, like, every third person is a hypnobirthing teacher, right? Like, it's just mad. But it's so, when I train teachers, like I say, like every half an hour, you have to value the work you're doing. Like, just, I think when, as women, we're like, oh, I help you. We're still giving something really valuable of ourselves. It's our time, it's our expertise, it's the learning we've paid for, it's the ongoing facilitation for our work, our ongoing training, our personal development. It's a huge job, and it's a big responsibility. Keeping up to date with research. It's not just like, oh, I just turn it on. It's a part of who I am, and that deserves to be valued. Like, that is of worth. Just like, we don't just give mums buggies. Like, you have to pay for the buggy. And I think it is the same. And until we live in a society that values birth education enough to make it decent, which is not going to happen anytime soon, unfortunately, then we should be charging for our services. And also, people value it more when they pay.
Oh, I know that.
Like, the amount of times, like, I just know so many teachers like doing, oh, free class, like free tasters, like, and then no one shows up because it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to go, it's free. And as soon as you put a price on it, people value it. It's a really weird, monetary psychological thing.
No, I've learned that, and I only give it free to friends, which I'm stopping now. So it's all, that was part of, and my background is, I suppose it comes from my background. I'm an academic, so all the work that I do, it's, teaching, lecturing, you do so much, you don't get paid for it. So I'm coming from that kind of
and it's undervalued, right?
Yeah, massively. And I don't think it is overpriced at all for what you deliver, but I suppose I want better accessibility for people that can't afford it. But then, like Linda, you offer, major discounts. You're always, offering something, and free places and those kind of things. So these options. Also, but anyway, like, I'll stop talking because I've had.
But offering like pay it forward places as well. Like, sometimes I've had a few people that have said, oh, can I pay for a course for someone else? Or, and I think there's lots of ways that you can work in like a responsible and considerate way to make it accessible, without compromising your value.
Good things to think about. Thanks, Hollie.
Pleasure.
Amy, you had your hand up before.
I did have it up and then I put it down because I think my comment was very similar to what Christina's just said. So I'm training to do hypnotherapy, and I do like Instagram, but I have been thinking, so what happens when I actually qualify in the summer? Do I just go on Instagram and announce it, and it all goes from there? Because that's how I feel like a lot of businesses are doing it. But actually, it's just really inspiring to hear how for you it grew quite organically, quite word of mouth, because I think that feels much more in line with kind of my values and how I'd like to do it, as opposed to feeling like Instagram is the only way or Facebook is the only way. I don't know if you've got any sort of other.
So when it comes to Instagram, especially, engagement is everything. Engagement is what gets you seen, and it's much better to have less followers that engage with your content rather than loads of followers that don't. If you have 100 followers who are super interested in what you say and they like your post and they comment and you have conversations with them, you are way more likely, the way the algorithm works, you're way more likely to be seen by new people than if you have 500 followers but no one's really talking. So I wouldn't focus too much on numbers of followers. Also, what I would say about Instagram is that social media is another aspect to your full-time job, and it takes planning, I think the problem that a lot of people come up against when it comes to social media is they think, oh, I'm going to launch on social media, it's going to be mega. And then they're like, they do a post and they're like, oh, what do I say next? Like, what do I post about? When do I post? And actually, you almost need a plan each month, what you're going to talk about roughly. I'm not saying like you have to script everything, but like, okay, so a marketing woman who I've worked with, her thing is like, it should be 80% personal, as in you're giving something, and 20% promotional. So you should only be promoting yourself 20% of the time. And that doesn't mean you need to be giving away your person 80% of the time, but it's like you could be educating or starting a conversation or giving tips or something. So you're giving more than you're asking for. And actually that makes what you're promoting a lot more likely to be engaged with. So when it comes to social media, really not thinking of it post by post, but thinking of the bigger picture. Like, what is your marketing plan for social media?
Mm.
And then thinking of it like, not just thinking of it post by post, like, do I feel like posting today?
Yeah, I think that's it, because I think there's a lot of, well, for me personally, it'd be a lot of energy and that feeling of showing up every day.
And when you don't,
you're not always in the mood.
Also, you don't always feel creative, do you?
No.
It's like I've always got some posts in the bank that I could post when I'm just not feeling it, because I can't be intuitive all the time or like give that part of myself all the time, because I just don't like have the energy for it. So when I am feeling like that, and that all goes back to being like having that female cyclical energy, but like when I'm feeling particularly good at communicating, I'll write a load of posts, because then when I'm feeling like a bag of potatoes, I can just pull one of those out and not think, oh God, what am I going to say tonight? So kind of seeing the bigger picture of social media as part of your business rather than a constant drain from your system.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Has anyone else got any questions? You don't have to put your hand up, you can just say. Oh, Susie has put her hand up. Go on, Susie.
Hi, hello. It's not really a question, Holly, more just I've followed you for a long time. I sort of used to live in southeast London, so I'm sort of in that mix.
Cool.
So followed you, and it's just interesting to hear you speak and how it's so similar to your voice on Instagram, and it's just nice.
It's my real voice.
No, I don't mean the sound of your voice, but like what you're saying. It's the same. It comes across, not that I was expecting it particularly to be different, but it's kind of sort of the stuff you talk about. It's it's just nice to see it that you're kind of living it.
Yeah.
if you know what I mean, like it's just.
I do.
Sometimes you think, oh, and I don't think this of you, but are they just saying that? But it sounds like you really live what you're saying, and that's quite nice to hear.
Thank you.
We don't often hear that in the media at the moment.
That's really meaningful. Thank you.
That's okay.
Did you want to ask a question as well? I didn't know if you did, Susie. Sorry.
No, it was just that really. I think what you said sort of answered most of my questions. Really.
But you know what's interesting when you say that? I think people are very scared of being authentic, and people are very scared of getting it wrong for people, or saying something that triggers people, or that like gets people's back up, and then we can kind of fall into this trap of trying to be so palatable that we dilute what makes us unique. And I think we have to be really mindful of that, especially when we're in person like centered industries, that actually I bring something unique to my teaching, unique to my followers, and I don't want everyone to like me. I don't need everyone to like me. At the point where everyone likes me, I've sold out. And I think it's always really important to have your values like at the front of your mind, or written down even, so that you're not just straying and bending all the time to be likable,
Sorry, I'll unmute myself. Yeah, I think that makes sense, and that comes through in how I've always perceived you is how you've shown up tonight. but it is hard to do that, isn't it, to sort of find your
really
voice
hard.
And be confident.
Yeah, because you know, for 9 people that say something lovely about you, one of them says they find your voice annoying, and you're like, what? You know, you always, your subconscious mind always holds on to the negative. So it's really important that you can always back that up with, yeah, but I love what I'm doing.
Yeah,
and that's enough.
I think it's always come across, but it's definitely come across this evening.
Oh, good.
Anyone else have a question?
Hiya, yeah, I do, if that's okay. No. So everything that you were saying is really relevant. I'm just kind of launching on Monday, so, and I'm not really particularly into social media either, but I've really tried to push myself for this launch, because I'm like, oh my God, this is my one opportunity to launch, so I need to get as many people to see it as possible. So, but so far, most of the people that are following me, either my friends or my old work colleagues, or, you know, just people I know. I've been using kind of hashtags and stuff like that, but I really do want the kind of genuine, like, organic followers who are actually interested in the product. So I was wondering if you've got any advice to kind of reach out to people. Is it just a case of keep plodding along and trying to be in the right place at the right time?
No, I mean, you can definitely have a strategy. Congratulations, by the way. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
And I think, is Instagram your main platform?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, like, really get comfortable with talking on camera to stories. So it sounds like you run some kind of parenting classes, or is that right?
Yeah, it's a subscription box for new parents. So I'm a health visitor, so it's kind of a lot of it. It's a bit about attachment theory as well, actually, which is why it was interesting what you're saying. And basically everything that we talk about as a health visitor, but in information each month, so that it's a bit more relevant.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So I mean, one thing you could do, you could definitely approach influencers, but I would be tempted to go for micro influencers, so like people with more like 10,000 followers, rather than like the big 100,000 followers. Like, there's no point. It's, you know, it's much better that you approach smaller people and who have a really engaged following. So, you know, always think about engagement over followers for a start. And you want to think about like converting your followers to clients and to paying customers. So it's like, well, how do I do that? I need a call to action on my Instagram. So you need people to easily be able to like what you're saying, buy your product. You don't want it to be like, well, if you email me, I can send you some information about this, and then I could post that. It's like, it's too complicated. People want everything to be quick, readily available, easy to buy, really good system for checking out. Like, everyone wants everything to be easy. The amount of times I've gone to buy something and then the checkout process is too complicated and I need to enter authentication codes, and I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. So it's like, I think streamlining your, like, the back end of your business should be a priority, because, and then making that really easy to access on the main page of your Instagram, so in your bio. You know, have you got like more than one box, or is it one box subscription?
So it's so when the baby turns 1 month, then they'll receive the 1 month information for the month ahead.
Yeah.
With, you know, some other bits in there and things. And then on the 2 month, when they turn 2 months, they'll receive a box, and it will be relevant for when they're 2 months old. So it's.
Yeah. So do you use MailChimp at all?
No.
So MailChimp, I would say, is well worth checking out, because then you can create mailing lists that give people what's relevant to them. Because what you don't want to do is it would be quite easy for your business to become spammy. As in, you don't want to end up sending 1 month information to parents with 6 months old. So if you can start streamlining your customers by keeping a database of them in something like MailChimp, so that they're only getting the information that's relevant to them, it's far more likely to convert them into customers.
Okay, yeah.
You know, people hate spam. So MailChimp would be a great way for people. You know, the reason I always talk about MailChimp is because creating mailing lists is really valuable, because you can always turn mailing lists into paying customers. So for instance, something I do sometimes is I offer a free MP3, like try my free sleep MP3, all you need to do is put your email in the box and you will get my sleep MP3, and then you can see what you think. They're getting something for free that is of value. I've got their email address, and then I can send them an email 3 days later saying, did you enjoy it? If you did, you might like this. So it's like, you know, by giving value first and not just selling, like showing people what you're about without any obligation could be valuable for you. And a MailChimp is a brilliant way to do that.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. I have actually got a few subscribers through the website, like they've given me their information already, just because it's a landing page at the moment.
Yeah.
So I have got some email addresses, but I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. I don't know, I haven't done anything with it yet. So
but also, like a business like yours, use your clients to attract more clients like them. So it could be that when you're like, if someone that buys one of your subscriptions enjoys it, if they recommend it to someone else, could they get like a, I don't know, like something for free, or you know, could they be doing could good come of them recommending you?
Yeah,
you know, so think about the longer chain.
Yeah, definitely, it's a good plan, thank you.
Yeah, but it sounds really people, you know, just be human in it. And I think also an interesting angle you could take is, like, everyone hates health visitors, right? No offense.
No, exactly. I know. It's kind of why I left. I was like, I'm fighting a losing battle here. I just want to help people, and they're already like, boundary. Yeah. So it is a bit of, I'm trying to do a bit of positive PR for health visitors as well.
Yeah, but it's a massive opportunity to say, I'm not your average health visitor.
Yeah.
Like, and to really connect with people, make it relatable. Like, you know, I'm not the health visitor that's going to tell you your baby should be doing this.
Yeah.
Because it is just such a stigma around health visitors, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah.
And it's a real shame. So I think using it as like a bit of a, I haven't heard someone doing what you're doing, so use that as an opportunity to say, no, I'm different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because actually,
I'm an ex-health visitor. I left last year.
but you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, no, absolutely. I completely get that. Yeah, thank you.
And it's quite an exciting opportunity.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for all your advice.
Pleasure.
Amazing.
Any more questions, ladies? I try not to talk in case there is. You sure? No one else has got a question? Sitting there thinking, I'd like to, but.
Don't be shy, I'll answer anything. Favourite sandwich filling, you name it, I'll answer.
Can I ask a question? Have you got any tips for talking stories on Instagram and Facebook stories?
I've never done a Facebook story in my life. I hate Facebook, but I always rabbit on Instagram stories. Imagine you're talking to one person, not kind of loads of people, and kind of don't overthink it. Like, whenever I never sit down especially to do stories. I think if you put too much pressure on it and think, right, this is what I've got to say, it can just go horribly wrong, and it can seem quite affected. Whereas if it's like, oh, I've just had this thought that's popped into my head, like today, I must have done about 100 stories or something ridiculous, just rambling on while I was walking the dog. But that's when I'm thinking about stuff. So I never think, oh, I should do an Instagram story today. I could go 2 weeks without doing one. So I would let it kind of happen organically. Same way that, you know, you won't always feel like talking to your mates. You don't always want to open up. You don't always want to share. But then other times it feels really good to. So I would say lean into how you're feeling and imagine you're talking to one person. Like, don't put too much pressure on it. It disappears after 24 hours. So it's much better talking to a story than a post.
Thank you.
Well, actually, I've got a question around that. So, like today, obviously, you said you did a lot of stories. Does it not take you absolutely ages to annotate them all with what you're saying, like text? Because that's honestly, don't you? I sound of my own voice coming back at me and back at me and back at me. I'm like, oh god.
Yeah. Or it's when other people are around me and I'm like, sorry.
Because it can look so like natural, can't it? But you're also aware that, my god, you've got to go back and right on top of that every single time.
Yeah, I mean, there are apps that do it, but I've just found them all rubbish, and they all just say like they basically annotate like one every 8 words correctly, and it's a nightmare. So I'd rather just do it myself. There is a way you can like switch on the microphone or something and it will bring up the words. I think you have to save them first or something. I just type it out.
I don't know. I was in awe of you today. I was like, wow, that must have taken some stamina. Go on, Hero, sorry.
Can I ask it? I hope it's not a silly question. I've been trying to put myself on stories and do the videos, and then I just sort of chicken out. But when you do your stories and you have the choice of a filter, are you going live and then you save the video, then you do the annotation? I've got myself confused. How do people do a video with a filter? I don't know how to do it, because otherwise I'm just doing a normal video and uploading it.
No, so if you go on, so I don't really do Instagram live, so I will go and do an Instagram story and then put the camera on me and you can select which filter you want. Then just press record, but it only lets you record 4 stories at a time. So then I'll annotate those 4, upload them, and then carry on with what I'm saying.
So the
which is why every 4 stories, the sentences aren't quite linked.
The story can be a video.
Yeah, so if you hold it down, it will be a video, and if you just press it, it will be a photo.
Okay, thank you. That's where I was going wrong. I didn't know to hold it down.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you can also do it on hands-free, which means you can set it up and then, you don't have to be holding the button down. You just press it and it will record for 15 seconds hands-free.
You have to hold the button the whole...
If you're not doing it hands-free, yeah.
Okay.
And then when you take your thumb off, it will stop recording.
Thank you.
Right.
That's makes me laugh because Hero was so technical. She's a photographer and she's amazing. I can't believe you didn't know that.
Maybe she's just asking it to make me feel better.
No, honestly, I've been trying to figure it out, and it's just one of those things. And I think just because I get fed up, I can't be bothered to find out, because you sort of. And I think
the other thing. Sorry.
As I said, you just put too much pressure. I put so much into it, and I just want to be able to just do it on the fly.
Yeah. The other thing you can do, if you feel like you want to kind of control or curate what you're saying a bit more, if you just film like a video of you talking, and then that you can edit it to like cut bits out you don't like. There's a good app called Splice, which I always use to edit my videos. And then if there's an app called Infinite Stories, and then if you put it in there, it will chop it up into 15-second segments, so then you can upload it as stories in the right order. Because if you try and upload a video to Instagram stories, it cuts you off at a minute, and it's really hard to find where it's cut off. So Infinite Stories, I'm pretty sure it's free, is a really good app.
Thank you. I think it's the filter, which is why I want it on the. I know it's about keeping real, but sometimes it's just nice to.
But also, if you swipe right, you get the even if you upload a video into stories, if you then swipe right, you can get different like screen effects. So it's not a filter as such, but it's like a different kind of shade.
Oh yes, yeah, I've seen that. Thank you. You're always learning. I think with Instagram, it's non-stop, really.
Totally.
Anybody else like to ask a question?
Just want to say thank you, really, to Hollie. When we went into lockdown this year, I think I was very guilty of jumping and being a bit scared and trying to jump straight into the next thing because I couldn't do my normal classes face to face. And since then, I felt like it's just been like that non-stop. And it's meant I've spent more time on Instagram and things like that. And like you say, not trying to compete with other people's followers or how many posts they're putting on and things like that. And what you've said tonight has grounded me a bit and brought me back to where I came from originally with my business and about it being person-centered. And that is where my customers come from. Whenever I look at it, it's all word of mouth. So all this time and effort I've been putting in on Instagram and things like that this year, am I getting much worth out of it? I really don't think I am, and I think you've grounded me a bit, so thank you.
Pleasure. Yeah, and also a revelation to me was you don't have to follow people that do what you do. I think there's this kind of like thing that, okay, well, I'm a hypnobirthing teacher, so I need to follow loads of hypnobirthing teachers. I hardly follow any hypnobirthing teachers. I don't want to see what other hypnobirthing teachers are doing. I don't care. It doesn't affect how I teach.
No.
Like, so you don't, and actually, if it's going to have a negative impact or like give you imposter syndrome or whatever, just don't follow them.
Yeah. I've had so many moments like this year where I've thought, should I be trying to franchise out my business and things like that? And then, but whenever I talk about it with my husband, he's like, but do you need to? Remember, you're doing this because you wanted more time with the children. Like, do you need to? Do you need to? And that you've honed, made me think about that a lot more.
Yeah, it's coming back to your why, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure.
And Vicky's amazing at what she does, by the way. And I think organic attraction from customers is so much more valuable. Sorry to make it about me. I was rubbish at social media for years, and I'm still average at it because I don't get that many customers through it for my actual hypnobirthing teaching. So much of it is word of mouth, so much of it, even now. And I don't actually worry anymore about filling my classes. Sometimes they fill, sometimes they don't. It doesn't mean they're going to be any better if they feel. Sometimes they're much nicer if I'm teaching 2 couples rather than 4. So it just kind of allow what happens to happen. So yeah, my little penny's worth.
I mean, most of my business still comes from word of mouth.
It's amazing, isn't it? And it's not amazing actually, but it's also, we get so invested in these strangers that we've never even met that might be looking at us. Although sometimes I'm taken by surprise too. And the power of social media sometimes like really shocks me. Like, for example, last Friday when I taught that mum's class, and I had 53 or 4 people on it. And that was because of social media. And that really took me by surprise. I'm like, oh shit, it actually worked. Whoa. And anyway, that's me rambling. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to ask?
I think, did Nat have a question?
Where's Nat? Lost you. Oh, there you are. Nat, go for it.
Hi, Holly.
Hi.
Thank you for your lovely talk. I had a couple of questions actually. So the first one was, the video editor you just mentioned. What was it again?
Splice.
Blind?
No, sorry, SPLICE. I've got a slight lisp. It's tricky. Splice.
Oh, slice. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like slice, but with a P in it.
Got it. I'm really new to Instagram, so I'm kind of struggling with it at the moment. We are trying to find like a business plan as to what direction. We've written a children's book, and it was inspired by hypnobirthing.
Is this the whale book?
Yeah, it is.
I owe you a post on this book. It's bloody amazing.
Oh, really? Thank you so much.
Good.
I'm glad you received it. That's amazing. But I was just going to ask, how often would you suggest to post? I really liked your point about because we don't know we have no content really. We don't know, like we have no idea where to begin with it. And I'm basically, as you say, posting on the day, not really having a strategy. And I like your point about posting 80% of personal and then 20% of promotional.
Mm-hmm.
So how often would you say is a good amount to post? And also we've got a Facebook page, but it doesn't really get much love. So would you say just to kind of give up on Facebook and just focus on Instagram?
I think so much of it depends on how much time and capacity you have. So that my starting point would say, how many hours a week can I dedicate to social media? Okay. If it is less than 5 hours a week, I would only give it to one platform, because it's much better making one platform great than spreading yourself too thinly over 2 or 3 platforms. Okay. Also, who is your customer? Like if your customer is, and I'm speaking generically here, but if your customer is like an 18-year-old, put your content on TikTok. If it is like middle-aged women, put it on Instagram or Pinterest. So like really think about don't just use the platform that you like, think about the platform that your clients will be on. And then also it's like, what is the goal of your content? Why do you want to use social media? Is it to sell copies of your book? Is it to raise awareness for the message you're trying to spread? And then kind of think about creating your content accordingly. So for like your book, which there's so much of your story in your book, Like, you don't just have to do posts about the book. Like, you can break it down so much into like, how is this message helpful to children? What kind of problems are children facing today, or what are children having to overcome today, and make it constantly relevant. So it's like, you know, you could talk about the back to school transition for kids. Like, is there a breathing technique they could do, or like a sentiment that they could think of to help that transition? So apply your beliefs and messages to what is going on in the world around you, and use that to create your content.
Sure. Okay, that's really helpful,
because there's so much, you know, you've got a total passion project there. Like, clearly it's been born out of your own personal experience and something that you really believe in. Like, definitely. There's so much content in that in itself.
Yeah.
And also,
sure.
I think it's easy to think that people know our stories, and most people don't. So it's like, tell them from the beginning.
Okay. So yeah, no, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to say, hi everyone. Thank you so much, Holly, for coming on. It's been fantastic. I think, like a few people have said, you really put back in the forefront of your mind the importance of, you know, like holistic. I used to be a nurse, so holistic care and looking after someone is really important to me. So thank you. I mean, that's always on my mind, but it's good to have it like reiterated. Something I wanted to ask you is, this might seem a little bit out there, but, or maybe not.
Now we're intrigued.
Yeah, it's probably really boring.
We all leaned in then and we were like, oh.
Oh dear, this is going to be disappointing. No, with the affirmations, so I have 2 kids, one is 6, one is 2, and I have to say, I've really lent on affirmations in homeschooling, in lockdown, so many times, and breathing so many times. And what you said about hypnobirthing and leading on to postnatal, you know, it not just being about the pregnancy and the birth, it's a lot about after. And I just think that, I mean, maybe, you know, it's already in your books and in what you're doing. I apologize because I feel bad that I'm not on Instagram. I don't understand it. I don't really know about it. But to have something that is actually like hypno and affirmations for life in general, as a guide, like not as a guide, but is it something you'd ever consider to, yes, your fundamental is hypnobirthing and, you know, prenatal, postnatal, but to ever, I don't know, do you know, I don't even know what my question is. Do you know what my question is?
Kind of. I mean,
I'm trying to get it out, it's not coming out.
This is the interesting thing though about when you grow your business organically. So we've now got 17 ranges of Yes Mum cards, so 17 different ranges of affirmation cards, and they're basically for all different stages of life, because actually I massively believe in the power of affirmations, and that there are always times where you can use them in going through different life transitions. So yeah, I think, you know, and the same with like guided meditations. It's like giving people resources, isn't it? But sometimes that can be as simple as opening up a conversation or hearing what people are meaning when they're talking. Like, I think especially social media, and I know I keep saying it, but it can be a very reactive place, and there's a real space for us to be responsive to the people we're working with, rather than reactive, or to immediately try and sell them something. Or you know, I think sometimes just creating a platform or a space or a community that allows people to be heard and like seen, I think is of value. So I don't know if that answers your question really, but
I don't know what my question was.
I wasn't sure what your question was, but that's kind of my thoughts on, like, you know, I don't think the answer is always like a product or something particularly tangible. I think one of the most powerful things about being a woman in business is the other layers that we bring to our offerings. And I don't think we should underestimate that.
Yeah, I try and I have to admit, I'm an ambassador for Tropic Skincare. So when I joined from being a nurse, like it's kind of totally different, but equally it's about caring for people. That's always been what I've been invested in. And it's amazing how you can apply that to anything you do, isn't it? I think it's not just, when I was a nurse, I was in turmoil, stress, and just not happy, as much as I loved looking after people. And I used to think, what on earth can I do? There's nothing else I can do that I can care for people in the same way. And then this happened. So I really, and when you say about the percentage of, you know, it's 80% for the person, the individual, and thinking more about what you can do for individuals.
Yeah.
You know,
I always need care.
Yeah. And it is a lot that ties in again with the mindfulness, doesn't it? I think, you know, it's and I think I've really learned that like when I do posts and especially lives, like I was terrified the first time I went on a live. I was like this, like, I can't believe I'm doing this live to you, like literally. And I was just so open and honest about it, and still get, you know, nervous about doing them, but I just try and go on and, you know, I be who I am. And you know, it's not scripted or anything, it's just me, and I'm, you know, trying to be just that, you know. So I think like when anyone has said about kind of going on social media, it is it's something you can become comfortable with, I think. Not, you know, it doesn't have to be. I mean, like I say, I've never been on Instagram. I don't really understand it. Is it actually more effective, would you say, than Facebook? I know you said you don't like Facebook, but is that because I don't really know anything about Instagram, to be honest.
If clients are on Instagram, or likely to be, then Instagram can be an absolutely brilliant free marketing tool. Because it is super visual, it's really accessible, you can give as little or as much of yourself as you want. I think it's a really, really good marketing tool. And if you want to connect with people outside of just your kind of local area or whatever, you know, it's, I think when you have boundaries with it and you understand it and you are prepared to like see it as part of your job, I think it can be really effective. And you can always delete it.
Yeah, true. So I think I rambled. Linda should have warned you about me.
No.
I go round in circles. Can you believe I'm a businesswoman? No.
Natalie, you're wonderful. You're wonderful.
I've had a lot on my head. My head's in a bit of a spin. So yeah, sorry, that was like a non-question kind of question and then a question.
Right.
But thank you. You've been awesome and really you're like an affirmation in yourself, if that sounds right. You are. It's kind of, yeah, everyone is, though. Nice. We all are.
I love that, Natalie. If you were asking Hollie if she does affirmations for people that aren't pregnant, I wasn't sure that was your question too. I'd recommend her human range, because they're kind of really, I think they're really applicable to someone like you and me.
I have to look.
What's that? Sorry, Hollie.
Can you just follow me around with like all my products,
handing things out? The thing,
like QVC.
The thing is, I genuinely use them daily, so I'm not doing it as some kind of gimmick. They were literally just on my dining room table next to me anyway, because I'm constantly using them for myself, for my family, for my clients. Can I ask one question, Hollie? I actually don't know the answer to this, but I don't know how you ended up teaching fern cotton in the first place. How did that come about?
So we have two mutual friends, and when she was pregnant, she had a particularly difficult birth with her first, and two people separately recommended her to me, and then she just emailed me and asked if I would teach her, and I said yeah, Sure, but it's funny, like for me, that's just it's just another client. It's another woman that I'm lucky enough to work with. Again, I think it can be very easy to like obsess over this like celebrity culture and think, oh God, right now, how am I going to teach this person? It's like, well, she gets the same course that everyone else gets. She gets the same attention, and I think that comes from a place of really valuing what you do and knowing that that person. I think it's easy to think, oh, they're doing me a favor by using me, or like by learning from me, and they're not. This is a two-way partnership. Like, you know, it's I feel privileged to teach you, and you're lucky to learn from me. Like, I think it's so important that when you start out in business, you really value your worth and believe in your abilities and your expertise and your wisdom and your ability to connect with people. So the answer is yeah, like a friend of a friend.
I was just intrigued.
So actually, no. So I'll tell you what the link was. So Giovanna Fletcher, I went to school with her. I went to primary school with Giovanna, and so I taught her hypnobirthing, and then she's friends with Fern. She recommended me to Fern, and then Fern and I have another friend in common. So she was recommended to me by both.
Amazing. Actually, it reminded me what you said about, I've taught quite a few people who are consultants, and that used to terrify me, like, oh my god, I'm teaching a consultant. But actually it's always worked out really well, because although in theory they're the expert, actually they just weren't in this context.
And they're coming to you because they want to approach it in a different way.
Exactly. And so it's just sucking up your balls, almost like, I can do this is fine.
I know what I'm talking about.
Mostly.
I mean, thank God she wasn't just my first client who I rambled off in a drunk state to.
I'd like to hear from that first client. Does anyone else, I'm aware that it's got quite late, and everyone's probably quite tired, including Holly. Does anyone else have
Oscar to bed?
He's
downstairs having the time of his life. Like,
oh bless you. I left George in bed with a device. I was like, you've got to turn it off, remember? Does anyone else have anything burning to ask? If not, I'll sign us off.
It's been lovely to talk to everyone. Thank you for having me.
So I really appreciate your time, because I'm more than aware of how we can be pulled in 100 directions. So I'm honoured that you chose us for your Thursday night.